Really excited that finally, after popular demand, we are having Michelle Norris from Paleo Effects join us today for a Facebook Live. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited that finally we're making this happen. And this is something that we've been talking about since we did the Fix for Female Hormones event last October. And between my schedule and Michelle's schedule, we've been like ships passing in the night, even though we see each other all the time. Somehow scheduling a Facebook Live has been a challenge, but I'm really excited to talk about a few things today. So this is just a little recap to kind of what your appetite for what's to come. As you guys know, if you participated in Fix for Female Hormones a couple years ago, was it 2017, Michelle?
The exposure to mold?
Yeah, your toxic mold exposure.
2015.
2015. So Michelle was exposed to toxic mold. We talked about this quite a bit in the interview that you can still catch over at fixforfemalehormones.com if you're interested in checking it out. But Michelle has basically been one of the pioneers in the whole ancestral health movement, starting Paleo Effects 8 years ago now, I think. So when everything started going off the rails for her with her health, obviously this was a really big deal, and she had to jump in the trenches like I and so many of you have had to jump in the trenches and really figure out what was going on to reclaim her health. And she started working with Ryan Freisinger back then, whom many of you know of because I speak of him. He's the person that I'm working with here in Austin too, to help me with a lot of my health issues. And she had to do more than just detox the mold. She actually had to take a look at a lot of the things that were in her environment that were contributing to her being sick. And I want to make this point that I heard Dr. Gary Forsman make in one of the Ask Me Anythings that we did with him a few months ago. He said that in his practice, he actually doesn't go after mold or do a ton of mold testing because in his experience clinically, the problem with patients that are having mold issues is not the mold. I mean, obviously you want to get out of a moldy environment, but it's not the mold. It's that the inner terrain is so weighed down already with other toxins. You have a toxic load going on that doesn't allow you to properly detox mold. When your body's working as it should, you're able to detox mold just fine. But when you have this toxic buildup in your system, or you're constantly being assaulted by a variety of things in your environment, mold just can crush you. And that was definitely Michelle's experience. And so to heal, she had to do a lot more than just get the mold out of her environment. So Michelle, I'd love for you to kind of take us back in time a little bit. Tell us a little about your experience with this diagnosis, with finding out you have this mold exposure. And I'd love for you just to share maybe your top 3 or 4 hacks that really helped you reclaim your health.
Well, so yeah, in 2015 was when the mold exposure began. We moved into our house on May the 8th. On May the 16th, we went on a 10-day cruise. And when we came back, so you're seeing how little time this took. By June the 10th, I couldn't get out of bed. That's how fast it hit me. And that means, like Misty said, that I already had such a toxic load in my body, and my body was not methylating properly, and my body was not doing what it needed to do at that point in time to be able to actually get rid of the mold. So I succumbed to it really quickly. What's interesting is I started doing a lot of research immediately, and first thing I came across was the mold exposure. We had just moved into the house. It was a rental house. We were renting our house out, and we owned a house in Kyle. And so the landlord he was new to me. I didn't know him very well, but he seemed very credible. And so I went to him immediately and said, hey, I think that I have a mold exposure. I think there's mold in the house. And he was adamant. There's absolutely no way there's any mold in that house. He just went on and on and on. So I actually went down the wrong path first. In March, before all of this, I had all my hormones run, and my hormones were perfect. They were like, they confirmed that I was in menopause, but they said I did not need any type of HRT or BHRT, nothing, because my hormones were really doing a great job. And so I was in really great shape. So I thought, okay, well, maybe my hormones that are out of whack. So I immediately went in, got my hormones tested, and June 21st, was put on the HRT. And I started actually feeling really good again, although I was still very, very fatigued and had a lot of brain fog going on. So fast forward, between October 15th and November the 10th, I gained 28 pounds. 28 pounds. I had fluctuated in weight up and down 4 to 5 pounds for 14 years since I went paleo. So this was drastic, and it was very upsetting, and I didn't know what was happening to me, and I couldn't figure out, because I had changed nothing about the way I ate. I had actually gotten a lot better about managing my stress and really protecting my sleep at this point. Actually, I'm going to go back just a tiny bit. We had made a decision as a team that we would, that was in 2016, but we made a decision as a team that we would really walk our talk. And so I was working my butt off for Paleo effects and not getting proper sleep and not managing my stress. So all of those things contributed to the fact that I could not overcome and methylate out this toxic mold exposure. So 28 pounds, there I am, and a friend of mine who is a hormone specialist who was visiting from Dallas, she and I were talking, and I was asking her about, I had just gotten on this HRT a few months before. It seemed like it was working, but now all of a sudden I gained 28 pounds. And she said, I think you might be a small minority of women that we're now finding out cannot take, because she asked me what I was taking. I was taking a combo testosterone and estrogen cream. And she said, I think you might be of the small minority of women that cannot take those two things together. Your body doesn't know what to do with the estrogen, so it immediately stores it as fat. So battled for 3 months with my doctor to separate the two. He finally separated the two, and boom, I lost all this weight. However, looking back, I realized also at the same time, so I actually think that it was more so this than it was the separation of the two hormones, was I was actually no longer in the house all day long. I was at our office from 8 o'clock in the morning to about 11 o'clock at night. So my exposure to the mold was very minimal at that point. So I think that's actually really the reason why I lost the weight, because as soon as Paleo Effects was over in 2016 and I was back in the house full time, boom, the weight came back on. So it just, at that point, I started working with Ryan. And Ryan was such a blessing, because he was trying to explain to me, we can't fix that until we fix how you're methylating. So I went through all of his methylation protocols. Probably the best thing that I ever did, and that's definitely a good biohack, is he put me on Desk Bio, which I know you've been on, Misty, and quite a number of people that we know that Ryan's working with. The Desk Bio detox protocol. It's a little 6 tincture protocol, and I probably went through that thing 4 to 5 times over a 2.5-year period. And so that was really key. The other piece was, we looked at all of my toxin load, and we noticed that I was off the charts in mercury. I was off the charts in thallium and in cesium and in aluminum. And so he was like, okay, we got to get those down. Those are not going to help you methylate. So we need to figure that out. And that's when he actually turned me on to the American Biodental, went down to Tijuana on October the 5th, 2016. Had all of my dentistry done and had that pulled, and they did the ozone therapy, which was the blood ozone therapy. They did Meyers Cocktail, and this is kind of a funny aside. Ryan was telling Keith what I needed to do, and he was like, she needs to do the Meyers Cocktail, but tell them to remove the glutathione. Keith didn't catch that piece. He thought he meant add the glutathione. So I ended up with the glutathione, even though I wasn't supposed to, but it actually worked out just fine. So October the 5th, have all the work done over that weekend. And then October 21st, have everything retested. And I have no heavy metals whatsoever in my body. Obviously, that's not the way the testing works. It's not terribly accurate. So I'm sure I have some heavy metals, but for it to have tested way off the charts and now I had none was really a blessing, and I actually was feeling better. The other thing that happened as a result of this was going down to have this work done, I had to come off of all my migraine medications. I was on migraine medications since 17. I've suffered with migraines. I finally actually had control over them a little bit once I went paleo, because I knew what my triggers were. And if I stayed away from my triggers as much as possible, I could control them. The only thing I couldn't control was the hormonal migraines. And obviously those were happening about once a month. And, but if I stayed away from my triggers, which was lack of sleep, red wine, and thank God for dry farm wines now, I don't have to worry about that one. Red wine, and then any kind of excessive sugar. That was a big deal for me. So I would suffer with really bad migraines if I let any of those things happen. So great thing, I was on 3 medications. Actually, scratch that. I was actually on a lot more medications than that, but I was on preventatives. I was on 2 daily preventatives and a midline. And what you call a midline is a medication I would take if I felt like I had a migraine coming on. And then there were 3 other medications to choose from when I had a full-blown migraine that I was taking. These were all super toxic to my body and were contributing to the fact that I actually was having the headaches. So they were perpetuating it, but also holding that toxin load, and also was a tax on my liver. I had my gallbladder removed in 1995 and was never told that I needed to watch my fat intake, was never told that I needed to take enzymes. Rob Wolf is the one that told me. He and I were driving down the road one day. I was out visiting him and Nikki, and was attending a couple of things that Rob was putting on, a couple of workshops. And we started talking about the fact that I didn't have a gallbladder. And he said, well, you're taking enzymes, right? And I was like, no, what enzyme? What kind of enzymes? And he's like, girl, you got to be on enzymes. You don't have a gallbladder anymore, so you don't have anything to help you break down that fat. And he said, so your liver is doing a serious ton of work. So I started taking enzymes back in, I think that was 2014 or 15. I can't remember. And so, they don't tell you these things when you have that. So my liver was overtaxed. So of course it wasn't methylating, it wasn't helping my system get rid of all of these toxins. So, and then of course, taking those migraine medications made it worse. And so doing this, work down in Tijuana was one of the best things, because I had to come off all of those medications before I went down there. And when I did, I was committed to staying off of them, and worked through a process of how to get rid of my headaches when I started having them in a natural way. And I have been migraine free since, which is a huge blessing for anybody that suffers from migraines. My deepest sympathy for you, but my definite recommendation is find alternatives that are not toxic to you, because these medications just perpetuated the problem. They did not actually help me. Mm-hmm. So that's the big one. Yes. Getting off of those. And so essential oils was a big, huge hack for me that helped me with the migraines, and that also helped my liver. In fact, because I wasn't putting all this stress on my liver by taking those medications and putting it through that whole process of trying to break down and get rid of those toxic chemicals that I was actually putting in my body. And so even for somebody like me who preaches don't put chemicals, all of that stuff in your body, there I was still doing it because of the migraines. And now I have an alternative that's really great and actually doesn't put toxins in my body. And I actually don't have migraines anymore. I've had a couple of bad headaches since then, but the essential oils have helped be able to get rid of that, and just doing a lot of meditating. And that's probably my other big hack is meditation has been really super key in helping me to manage my stress and keeping that stress down. Because once you tax everything, you're taxing adrenals when you're stressed out, you're not sleeping well, everything is being taxed. And of course that goes into your liver, and what the operation and the methylation system that you have is not going to work properly.
Mm-hmm. So another hack I know that you did during this time was going after Epstein Barr. And this is something that I've talked about a lot in our community. I actually just had an Epstein Barr reactivation because I came off of hormones, which was really interesting. And so now I'm doing some things with Ryan that are pretty badass biohacks. I'm hoping it'll all work out and I can tell everyone what we did. That's basically intended to eradicate Epstein Barr, which isn't supposed to be possible. So we'll see how that goes. But I know that Epstein Barr was a big one for you. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that, because there's lots of women in our community who know they're dealing with Epstein Barr or are finding out because we talk about it so much that, oh my God, this is a thing that's making me feel so exhausted. Yes. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your experience around Epstein Barr and the healing protocols that you did.
Well, of course, you know, that whole just feeling super fatigued and foggy brained and not feeling like, I mean, I just felt like I couldn't do anything. Like it was a very helpless, hopeless kind of feeling of just feeling super overwhelmed by everything that I needed to do with regard to Paleo effects and all of the things that I have going on in my world and the things that I'm involved in. And so it was just every day felt like this big, huge mountain was ahead of me. And I didn't have any coping or any mechanisms for getting over that mountain. And that's what I liken Epstein Barr to, is that it just felt like this, unsurmountable mountain. It was just hard. And so, yes, so I started doing the protocol that you're doing. Well, you were doing, I don't know what you're doing now. I'd love to hear all about this, but with Ryan, went through the EBV protocol. I went through it 3 times. And after I went through the protocol the 3rd time, it just felt like, it was just like this, the oceans parted.
I know.
Like, whoa, I just felt like, hallelujah. Oh my God, I finally am starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train. And so
it's not a train running me over.
Yeah, I know, because I did feel like a train ran me over quite a bit. And so it was this just amazing feeling of starting to have energy again. And then the weight was, because I started, I would lose some of the weight, but then would hold on to some of it and wouldn't be able to get rid of all of it. And it was just really super frustrating because my diet is super dialed in, as you know. I very rarely cheat on my diet. And then it just felt like I was never getting, ahead of that. I was just constantly behind. And so when I went through that protocol for the 3rd time, it just, like I said, it was just like, the seas parted and I was finally there, and the promised land was right ahead. And I actually really started losing significant amounts of weight and feeling better and feeling a lot of energy and feeling like, okay, I'm finally going to get past this piece of it. But the thing is of course, like you said, you can't really eradicate it. So you have to really continue to watch what you're doing as far as managing stress and keeping your sleep dialed in and keeping your diet dialed in, because this is the thing that we don't really think about, is that regardless of how you eat, as dialed in as your diet is, it's still a stress on your body. It's just, that's the way our bodies are set up for, because everything you put in your mouth is a precursor to all of your hormonal cascade. And so you have to really watch all of that. And I don't mean like I don't know what don't be dogmatic about it. Don't beat yourself up if you make a mistake or whatever. You've got to give yourself some grace, and you've got to give yourself some patience with regard to that, because we're human. And at the end of the day, we do succumb to temptations that are really difficult. And I mean, I'm there not preaching at anybody. I'm just saying, be really kind to yourself when you're going through this process, and really do some of the things that really need to take care of yourself. One of the things that Ryan was adamant about was that I needed to start going and having a massage at least once a month, that I needed to go do that so that I had a way to actually help with relaxing and getting. And so I'm still doing that. And I can say that it's probably one of the things that really is super helpful in getting me to de-stress and to relax for just an hour a month. I think we can all do that. But I mean, there's other things that you can do. Like I get in my sauna almost every single day. And that's another big biohack that I swear by. And I know you sauna as well. And it's one of those things that helps you get rid of the toxins. So, these are all the little things that you need to do to be able to help with getting wrestling that Epstein Barr back into submission. And so, I would love to hear about at some point about what you're doing now to try to hopefully eradicate it, because I'm going to be doing that. case, but I can just say it's just, you know, it's one of those things that so many of us are walking around with it and have no idea. I mean, the numbers from everything that I've heard from Ryan and like Kasha Kynes and from several other people that have been dealing with particularly mold exposure that goes into and activates Epstein Barr, the numbers are incredibly high, and people are walking around and not knowing what's wrong with them and just, you know, trying to slug through their day and not really do anything about that. And that's one of those things that I'm like, oh, there's just so many different things that you can do to try to get your life back.
Yeah, totally. You've explored being clinically hypo, or subclinically hypo. And you've also done HCG like I've done, and I mostly have good results with HCG. I did have a really hard time getting HCG to work for me when my thyroid was low.
Yeah.
I think if you have a really, really major stressor like that, it's challenging to get HCG to work, but God, I love HCG. Like if it weren't for that, like I've been able to lose weight and get the pounds off when I've had a trigger event happen that like nothing else has worked. You know, you try keto, you try eating super clean. I've even tried massively reducing calories. I mean, all the things as women that we feel like when we're so desperate to get the weight off. And one of the things that I find myself talking about a lot, because it's such a reality for me, and I know that a lot of other women experience this, is when the weight is coming on and you feel out of control. First of all, it's brutal emotionally and mentally. Second of all, I have found that my body, it's like, it's hard to get any of the hacks to work when the weight is piling on. I have watched losing the weight, right, so many things in my labs, you know, where that's the only thing I did is just go on HCG, peel off the pounds that were coming on. And then suddenly like all of my cholesterol numbers look great, and my inflammatory markers are all down, and my hormone numbers look better. I mean, it's just like when that weight piles on, it like cripples our system. Yes. So I'd like for you just to share a little bit with your experience with HCG. I know that you mostly have a positive experience, but there was a time that you had a challenge getting it to work for you too. And I think it'd be great for us just to talk about that.
Yeah. So, I definitely, I used HCG to try to help during the summer after 2016 Paleo effects. Really tried to get some of that weight off, because for one thing, it was super uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable.
My breasts were so enormous that I felt like chafing was happening here. And it was I mean, sorry, y'all, that may be TMI, but I'm just,
that's reality.
In there, how uncomfortable that is. Like, I just felt like my arms just felt really super fat, and it wasn't just about the vanity, although, you know, y'all, that's
reality. Yeah, I know. I don't like hearing it either.
And, you know, everybody who knows who my husband is, it's kind of hard to feel like you're packing on like 28 pounds when you're married to, you know,
Mr. America.
It feels really stressful. And so, and it was really hard. And there's pictures of me where I had all that excess weight on, where I look at them and go, oh, and of course, you know, you gain it here. And that's one of the first places I gain weight is there, and apparently my breasts. And so, and then of course it started in, you know, the midsection, where I started not, you know, fitting into my clothes and my pants, and you just feel you're just that's just how it is. So so I used HCG, and it worked for me the first time that I used it. It worked really great. That was in the summer of 2016. But then after that, when I put pounds back on, because, you know, the EBV was just still, you know, really at work. It was really hard because I had the weight back on again. And so I went to use it another time. And that's when I started actually noticing, because I was tracking everything. I mean, I track everything every single day. So I track my basal temperature first thing when I get up in the morning. And I track my, you know, how do I feel? What's my fatigue level? I track all of that. What's my mood? Because a mood is really super important, especially when you start dealing with a doctor who you can actually get them to understand your feelings and how and your symptoms. Mm-hmm. And so tracking your mood on a daily basis is really an excellent way to know that. I tracked everything that I ate. I tracked how I was, and I wasn't, y'all, I don't get like real stressed out about all this stuff. Like, you know, if I skip a day or something like that, I don't freak out about it, but I'm just systematic about it. And the reason being isn't to be, you know, I'm not orthorexic. I want really good health, but if you don't have numbers to really follow and to be able to, when they're off, you're not going to know. And that's the only reason I do it. I'm not, like I said, I don't think that you should be dogmatic about it. I don't think you should make it a stressor. I think it just needs to become part of your routine so that you actually have a baseline of where you feel really good. And then you're like, oh shit, I have hit the skids over here. And what is it? Where can I figure out what that is that has caused me to go off the skids? And I can tell you most of the time for me, it's when I don't manage my stress and when I don't manage my sleep. And sometimes if I am not managing stress and I'm not managing sleep and I have alcohol, that's a big one for me. Mm-hmm. So I have to really watch all that. And so I started really tracking everything and starting to see, where is it that I'm going off the rails? Well, then that's when I started noticing, holy crap, I have every symptom of hypothyroidism. I have every symptom there. I mean, like every single one of them, that was it for me. So I went into my doctor and I'm telling him, I believe that I'm hypothyroid. Now we, of course, got my hormones. My TSH was in the normal average range. And of course, who wants to be average? No, I don't want to be average. And all those numbers are based on, which all of you probably know this already, but those numbers are based on very sick people. So that's not that. I do not believe one size fits all. I think we all have different numbers where we're optimum. And so my numbers were clearly much lower. They needed to be much lower for me to feel good. And so I battled my doctor for another 3 months. And then finally, at the point where he finally gave in to me and said, oh, okay, yeah, I think you do have hypothyroid, my TSH was screaming. It was 5.8 by the time he finally listened to me. And then, y'all, I'm super educated, obviously, about health and nutrition and all of these things. And my doctor actually recommends a paleo diet for people, which is one of the reasons why I chose him as my doctor. But he just still was so adamant about the numbers and not the person and not how I felt and not my symptoms. So clearly I have now left his practice. I have to have somebody that is my partner in my health and is understanding that he needs to look at the whole person and not just the numbers, because those numbers are not my numbers. Those are not what the numbers are that are good for me. Obviously we have a range and that's great. And for us, and that's the first place where you want to start when you don't have any baseline. But once you've got a baseline, those are your numbers, not what's on not what's on the tests in the average range. You need to be optimal. And so now that I've dialed all that piece in, and of course, hypothyroid, turns out I have Hashimoto's on top of all of that. Because that was the other thing, is I made him go back and test me for the, you need to have reverse T3. You need to have all of these numbers for you. You need to have the antibodies, TPO, and all of that in order to know really where you are. Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't testing for those because they still have in their heads, TSH is the number. It's not. And so finally got him. Now I've actually been able to educate that doctor and his physician's assistant, who was actually a lot more open to what I was telling her. And now they are actually doing a lot more for the person, which I'm really happy to hear about. But I have, of course, moved on to a new doctor. But it's, that's one of the things. You're going to have to be your own health advocate. You're going to have to advocate for yourself, and it might be very fiercely. And don't feel bad about that. Do not even feel the least bit sorry about that, because you're the only one that's going to care as much about your health as you do. You're it. I mean, I don't think any doctor at any point in time wants to not help a patient, but at the end of the day, how much time does he have for you? You've got 3 to 5 minutes with a doctor. He just doesn't have the time, and he doesn't have the time to keep up with the emerging science either. So, you just have to really be your own best health advocate and don't apologize for it.
Yeah, totally. So one of the things that I feel really inspired by when I have these conversations with Michelle is not only her fierceness around this, which my little Leo roar can be pretty pity the resistance that comes up in my life around all the health stuff. But Michelle has actually taken all of this passion and channeled it into creating a space for all of us as a community to come together and to get educated and to learn the latest and greatest that's going to help us optimize our health. And I actually met Michelle about a year, maybe not quite a year after I moved to Austin. Mutual friend introduced us and started.
I crashed my birthday party, y'all.
I crashed the birthday, kind of.
Sort
by invitation, but not by hers.
But I love teasing her about that. I love
yes.
Crashed my birthday party, but look,
it's a story that won't die. I'll be hearing about that one forever. But anyway, it was really fun for me to go behind the scenes and really see not only what it takes to put on an event like Paleo Effects, but to really build a relationship with her and Keith. They're some of my closest friends here in Austin. And I have been helping with the marketing for the event the last couple of years, as many of you know. And this event is just, it's so much heart and soul. And that's the thing that I think keeps people coming back year after year. We've got amazing speakers coming in this year. And Michelle, I'll let you tell a little bit about some of the speakers that are coming. We've got awesome speakers that come out for the event. And this year we're expecting over 8,000 people to come through the event right here in Austin. It's April 26th through the 28th. A Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we've got a lot of stuff going on at Paleo Effects this year to really support the Healing Rosie community. I'm going to host a breakfast on Saturday. I'm going to be sending information out about that to you guys. So if you're in the Austin area and or you're going to be in town for Paleo Effects, I'd love for you to come out on Saturday, meet a lot of our speakers, mix and mingle with each other, and, you know, just build some community, put a name to a face on, you know, all of the people that you see commenting here on the Healing Rosie Facebook group. So we're going to do that on Saturday. I am hosting a panel on women's hormones at the event, which is going to be awesome. And we are also going to do a lab hacking workshop. I know a lot of you are really wanting to kind of like step into this seat of advocacy, which is really empowering. You guys have downloaded, most of you, the Healing Rosie Lab Tracker and have access to some tools. And sometimes it can feel daunting, like, what do I do with this? And how do I approach it? And what am I looking for? And I want to support you all in better understanding this area. So we're going to do a workshop on, we're going to kind of combine the ideas of finding a doctor, getting your labs run, and then, you know, what do you actually do with this information once you have it? I want everyone that attends this workshop to walk away feeling like, I know what to do tomorrow whenever I get home to really take my health to the next level and to reclaim some of my power. Because like Michelle was describing, even for women like us who naturally lean into our power a little bit more and have tons of access, it still can be a struggle. It still can be a struggle on this journey, figuring out what's going on in your own body, getting your doctors on board with trying out treatment protocols, finding the practitioners that are going to help you get to the root cause. Even once you know, like with Epstein Barr, for example, you might be familiar with treatments, but then you've got to experiment and figure out what's going to work for you. So I'm super excited for Paleo Effects coming up. And Michelle, I'd love for you just to tell us a little bit about this year's event. We are going to put a link to the contest. We have a contest going on right now where we're giving away 4 premier badges to the show this year, which I'm super excited. And I hope you all will go register for this contest because I really want to see you at the event. And of course, there's some other really cool things going on. So Michelle, why don't you just kind of give us a 2-minute overview of what we can expect this year at Paleo Effects?
So we've been hard at work for a long time. One of the questions that I get asked all the time is, how long does it take for us to put together a Paleo Effects event? It takes us 18 months. We start, so we've already started the 2020 event. And in fact, Misty's pulling her hair out right now. So we really work hard to make sure that each event exceeds the expectations of the previous event and actually the standard that we have. So we keep trying to raise the bar. So this year, I am really super excited about some of the speakers that we have coming that we have not had in the past. So we have Dr. Pompa coming. He's not been on the Paleo Effect stage previously. Dr. Stephen Gundry, I'm super stoked about him coming because one of the things that I just recently found out about in my genetics is that I am an APOE 3/4. And that means that everything that I was doing as a person in the paleo world was actually going to be harmful to my health because I have the genetic markers for early onset Alzheimer's. So Stephen Gundry is the premier, the badass in the space on APOE 3/4, and I'm super stoked to have him coming. We have, of course, Dr. David Perlmutter coming, Rob Wolf, all the normal cast of characters, Chris Kresser, Mark Sisson, Nora Gagaudis, Sarah Ballantyne, all the badasses in health. And then we are Dr. Anna Becca, she's another one, and I know that you guys got to do an AMA with her. She will be coming. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, Dr. Maritza Schneider, Dr. Christopher Shade. I'm super stoked about the people that we have coming. Then my personal doctor that I currently use now, well, I should say doctors, and they're married, is Dr. Daniel Stickler and Dr. Micah Hamilton. She's a freaking badass, y'all. I am so stoked that she's coming and she's going to be speaking as well. This will be her first time on our stage. And so just really incredible lineup of people. And Dave Asprey, of course, and JJ Virgin, two of my very good friends, they will both be there as well. And so I can't say enough about how much we do, like you said, heart and soul. It's really for us a labor of love and a mission to really impact and change the world. And we believe that the way that we do that is by taking control of our own personal health and becoming our own best advocate for our health. And we just want to help and empower and provide tools and skills and everything for people to be able to do that, because at the end of the day, the healthcare system that we currently have is not a healthcare system at all. And we see that changing. We see that changing drastically in the future. And we believe that you're going to become the partner, your doctors, your healthcare practitioners, your health coaches. We see that as the future of real, true, good medicine is going to be, you start working with health coaches and you go to a doctor when you need one. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is that a lot of people don't know that this is happening, but because of Obamacare, we are losing 168 doctors per day from the system. That means there's going to be a shortage of doctors, which means you need to find a really good health practitioner coach that's going to be able to coach you through all of this. And that's another thing you're going to see at Paleo Effects is all of these excellent health coaching programs that are certifications for people to get involved in that. And you're going to be able to find those people through Paleo Effects. And we're really excited to support that and to see that coming online, because that is going to drastically change the game for people to be able to take control of their own health. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm really excited about this year's event. I love being part of it. I love doing so much to make sure that the event is successful personally. And I'm going to love being part of the event as kind of a representative for Healing Rosie in our community and really creating space for women to get more support. One of the things that I feel really grateful for is that Michelle really saw my vision early on before Healing Rosie was even a thing. I told her about it about a year and a half before we actually launched, and told her that, I wanted to come and support Paleo Effects, but what I wanted is for support for Healing Rosie. And she's been a really awesome ally in our space, made lots of connections for us. She encourages people to participate in our community and is cheering too, just like me. We both felt like in the ancestral health space, we have all these great talks and these mini movements within our space that take these ideas like keto, for example, and ramp it up and put it on this pedestal. And women really struggle implementing, I would say, probably 60 to 80% of the biohacks that come onto the scene. And that's not to say every woman has trouble, but in general, women have trouble. And there's not enough conversations around how to customize these protocols to get them to work well for women. And that's really what inspired me to start our community, is wanting to create space for us to have these conversations. And also I want to create a groundswell so that the people in our movement, men and women, see that there's this very large contingency of people who are committed to figuring out what works. And we're not just content with some scientific study that was done on 15 men that supposedly proves something is effective. We want to see in the trenches that this stuff actually is working for women. And we want our leaders to pay attention to the challenges that women are facing and figure out ways to really help us. So I'm very excited about the opportunity that we have as a community to participate in Paleo FX. And I hope all of you will buy tickets and come and meet me and meet Michelle and meet a lot of our great speakers, meet each other, get fabulous education. I mean, the stuff that we talk about at this event is stuff that I chew on for the entire year. It is really, really fantastic, and participating is life-changing. You'll meet so many of the vendors and exhibitors and people that have businesses in our space that solve real everyday problems that we're dealing with, that have solutions that could really help you change your life. So I hope you'll all come and join us in Austin next month. And I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that, Michelle, but we're going to just look up in the status. We're going to have links to get a ticket. There's a coupon code up there for you for 25% off of badges if you want to get a premier or VIP badge to the event. And there's also a link to the contest where you can go sign up for one of the 4 free badges that we're giving away.
You could easily win. And this is the thing, you know, one of the big things for Paleo FX is that we were a theory to practice thing. Like Misty said, it's great that there's this science, but if it doesn't work or you don't know how to use it in your daily life, it's kind of, that's the whole reason that Paleo FX was born, was to put the theory into practice and to try to figure out how that works. And so we're big and very tremendous backers of an N=1 experience. You have to be you're not just your own best health advocate, but you've got to be your own scientist. You've got to test these things on yourself and figure out what works and really pay attention, because of this, the thing is that our body is this amazing, for lack of a better word, machine and tool that actually will tell you what it needs and tells you what's wrong, and will, if you listen and you pay attention and you start understanding what your body is telling you, because it will talk to you and it will tell you what it needs. And so that's the whole reason why Paleo FX exists, is to help people dial into that and get their N=1 nailed down so that they know what is going to work for them. And that this is the thing, this is an ongoing thing. It's not going to be, oh, I found it and this is my holy grail right here. Your holy grail may change a little bit down the road, because what worked for me, 10 years ago is not clearly working for me now. So you're just going to have, this is a perpetual thing, but you've got to prioritize your health. And so I honestly believe that Paleo FX is one of the best ways to prioritize your health, because you're going to learn from the best.
That's right. The very best, the very, very best in our space, which is exciting. So glad you guys all joined us today. Thank you so much, Michelle, for stopping by. I hope to see you all at Paleo FX next month. Go register for the contest. And thanks again for sharing so much of your story, Michelle. I really appreciate it.
Can I say one other thing too?
Yeah.
If you didn't get a chance to join us live and you have questions, because I know a lot of you have reached out to me privately, but it's really difficult for me to do all of that with Paleo FX going on. But I want to answer your questions. So if you do have questions, post them, and then Missy will make sure I come back and answer them for you.
Awesome. Very good. All right. Mwah, mwah.
Bye.
Thank you, Michelle. We'll see you guys.